If someone says, "Tell me a joke," what is the first joke you tell them?
This is one of my grandpa's. There are these two beautiful marble statues on either side of a big open piazza. For centuries they have stood frozen, staring longingly into each other's eyes. One day the gods look down upon them with pity and decide to grant them 1 hour of mortal life. The statues, overwhelmed with joy, rush across the square and into each other's arms and immediately run off into a bush to fulfill their greatest desires. After about a half an hour of rustling around in the bushes, they emerge, panting and sweaty. "Wow," says the one statue, "that was amazing, a dream come true," says the other, "but we've got a half an hour left, what should we do now?" "I know," the first responds, "this time I'll hold the pigeon down while you shit on it."
There are 3 flies in a jar. 1 male, 2 female. One day one of the female flies decides she wants to get out of the jar. She goes up to the other female fly and says, "Hey, how do you get out of the jar?" The other female fly says, "I don't know, maybe ask him." So the female fly goes up to the male fly and asks, "Hey, how do you get out of this jar?" The male fly says, "I can tell you, but you have to fuck me first." And flies, they aren't very smart. So they do it, and the male fly tells the female fly, "You start from the bottom of the jar and fly as fast you can to the top of the jar and boom, you'll pop right out." So the female fly does just that. Flies from the bottom of the jar to the top of the jar as fast as she can. Splat. Dies. Later on, the surviving female fly decides she wants to get out of the jar. So she goes up to the male fly and asks, "Hey, how do you get out of this jar?" The male fly says, "I can tell you, but you have to fuck me first." And flies, they aren't very smart. So they do it, and the male fly tells the female fly, "You start from the bottom of the jar and fly as fast you can to the top of the jar and boom, you'll pop right out." So the female fly does just that. Flies from the bottom of the jar to the top of the jar as fast as she can. Splat. Dies. Then the male fly gets out of the jar. I stopped talking then. The people I'm telling the joke would then say, "How did he get out of the jar?" "I can tell you, but you have to fuck me first."
A bear is chasing a squirrel in the woods. They cross a river when, all of a sudden, the river genie appears. Genie, well, shit. 2 customers. I don't know who triggered this whole thing, so let me give you 3 wishes. Bear, you start, since you're bigger. Bear thinks for a moment. He smiles, "Okay, I want all the other bears in this forest to be females." Genie grants the wish, turns to squirrel. Squirrel thinks. He looks up to the genie, "I want a motorcycle." Bear shakes his head, "Squirrel, you don't know how to wish." Genie then asked the bear for his second wish. Bear responds, "All right, I want all the other bears in the country to be females." Genie grants the wish. Genie turns to squirrel, "How about it?" Squirrel responds, "Gimme a motorcycle helmet." Bear shakes his head again. "What's wrong with you?" Genie then turns once more to bear and asked for final wish. "You know what? I want all the other bears in the world to be female." Genie grants the wish, then turns to squirrel. Squirrel grabs his helmet, puts it on. He then walks to the motorcycle, gets on it. He starts it, runs the engine a little. As he rides away, not looking back, he yells, "I want the bear to be gay."
This is a gross one my best friend's dad used to tell us. 3 men are on a hunting trip in the woods. After a successful day, they brought a buck back to the camp to field dress. They then proceed to get drunk and are having an all-around good time. One of the hunters announces that he has to take a shit, so he shuffles off into the woods for privacy. Some time goes by and the other 2 start to wonder why he's taking so long. They start looking for him in the woods, and lo and behold, he is found sitting with his pants around his ankles on a log, his bare ass hanging off the side, totally passed out from drinking so much. Rather than wake their friend, they decided to play a joke on him. They left, and returned with a bucket of the guts from the buck they shot. They dump the guts under their friend's bare ass and leave. The next morning, they awake to the friend walking stiffly out of the woods. They snicker and ask what happened to him, and if he had a good shit. He responds, "Well, I passed out mid-shit, and when I woke up I realized I had shit all of my guts out. But by the grace of God and the help of a big stick, I got all back in."
What did the bra say to the hat? "You go on ahead, I'll give these 2 a lift."
This one is a classic. 3 construction workers, an Italian, a Mexican, and a redneck, were sitting on a steel beam at the top of a skyscraper they were building. It was lunchtime. The Italian worker opens his lunchbox and sees that he has spaghetti and meatballs. "Son of a bitch," he says, "spaghetti and meatballs again. Every day it's spaghetti and meatballs. I swear if I get spaghetti and meatballs again tomorrow, I'm going to commit suicide by jumping off this building." The Mexican worker opens up his lunchbox and sees a burrito. "Damn it," he says, "another damn burrito. I'm so tired of burritos. If I have to eat a burrito again tomorrow, I'm going to jump off of this building and commit suicide." The redneck worker opens his lunchbox and sees a bologna sandwich. "Shit. Another damn bologna sandwich. If I get another bologna sandwich tomorrow, I'm going to commit suicide." The next day during lunch hour, they are sitting on the same steel beam. The Italian worker opens his lunchbox and finds spaghetti and meatballs. Without saying a word, he closes the box and throws himself off of the beam and drops 20 floors to his death. The Mexican worker opens his box, finds a burrito, closes the box and jumps to his death. The redneck worker opens his box and finds a bologna sandwich, closes the box and jumps to his death. A couple of days later, the families of all 3 workers meet at the cemetery just after the funerals. The Italian worker's wife was crying. "Oh, if only I had known how he felt about the spaghetti and meatballs, I could have fixed him a muffalota, and he would still be here today." The Mexican worker's wife said, "I could have fixed my husband a taco or an enchilada, and he would be here with me today." There was a moment of silence while everybody was waiting for the redneck worker's wife to comment. "Don't look at me," she said, "he fixes his own lunch."
Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson are going camping. They pitch their tent under the stars and go to sleep. In the middle of the night, Holmes wakes Watson up. "Watson, look up at the stars, and tell me what you deduce." "Watson, I see millions of stars, and even if a few of those have planets, it's quite likely there are some planets like Earth, and if there are a few planets like Earth out there, there might also be life." "Holmes, Watson, you idiot, somebody's stolen our tent."
A family walks into a hotel and the father goes to the front deck and says, "I hope the porn is disabled." The guy at the deck replies, "It's just regular porn, you sick fuck."
Jesus, I had this question at the end of a job interview. Here's the joke I told: I got the job. 2 engineering students were walking across campus when one said, "Where did you get such a great bike?" The second engineer replied, "Well, I was walking along yesterday minding my own business when a beautiful woman rode up on this bike. She threw the bike to the ground, took off all her clothes and said, 'Take what you want.'" The first engineer nodded approvingly. "Good choice, the clothes probably wouldn't have fit." Knock knock. Who's there? To who? To whom?
3 engineers are on a road trip, a mechanical engineer, an electrical engineer, and a software engineer. They pull over at a restaurant to eat, and when they try to leave, the car won't start. The mechanical engineer says, "Let me check the starter." The electrical engineer says, "Let me make sure the battery is connected." Always try the easiest solutions first. The software engineer rolls his eyes and says, "Before we do anything else, let's all just get out of the car and then get back in."
A farmer and his dog are herding sheep. They finish and his dog says, "I counted 40 sheep." The farmer replies, "That's odd, I only got 37. The dog replies, "I rounded them up."
What's the difference between a hippo and a zippo? One's really heavy and the other's a little lighter.
So a farmer wakes up one morning and looks out the window and sees his prize rooster laying in the middle of the barnyard stiff as a board with buzzards circling overhead. With his only rooster dead, he decides to go to the market to buy a new rooster. At the market he sees a stall with a very nice looking rooster and he asks the seller how much he wants for the rooster, and the seller tells him $1,000. The farmer is absolutely shocked at this price, but the seller tells him, "This is the most amazing rooster you'll ever see. If he doesn't fuck all the hens, not only will I give you your $1,000 back, I'll pay you $5,000. The farmer realizes that this is too good of a deal to pass up, so he decides to buy the rooster. When he brings it home, he sets it down in the barnyard and tells the rooster, "Listen here. I have a lot of hens, but there is no hurry. My last rooster worked himself too hard and died. So just take it easy and do your thing." The rooster is off like a bullet and he runs to the hen house and fucks every single hen. He dashes to the pond and fucks all the ducks. He's just a blur around the farmyard fucking every animal he can. The farmer is in awe at the rooster and thinks, wow, this really is the most amazing rooster ever. The next morning, he wakes up and sees the rooster laying in the middle of the barnyard, stiff as a board, with buzzards circling overhead. Oh no. He yells and falls on his knees next to the rooster. Why did you overwork yourself so hard? I told you to take it easy. The rooster opens one eye and points at the buzzards and whispers, shush, they're getting closer.
Consider subscribing.